What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. I'm joined this week by my good friend, JAYCE OSTROWSKI, Polack Outdoors, also known as Michigan Great Outdoors, from his incredible YouTube channel. I'm really happy that JAYCE came on with me. He was one of the first people I asked to join me on this podcast endeavor, and then both of our lives got a little crazy, and about a year has gone by, but we were finally able to link up and record this, and I just had a great conversation. I feel like I could talk to him for hours, and he's one of those guys that you feel like you could just have him come over and you'd hang out and just hang out with and spend time with and learn from and just have a good time and laugh and share stories. And anyway, I look forward to remaining friends with him and catching up throughout the year and following along with his progress. And I hope you all enjoy this podcast. Thanks. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This is episode 19, and I am joined tonight by, I hope I'm saying this correctly, JAYCE OSTROWSKI.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my God. I slam dunked it on the first try there. And JAYCE is a fellow Michigander, and I'm going to call him the founder of Michigan Great Outdoors, which is his YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Yep, Michigan Great Outdoors.
That's awesome, man.
I think it's 2018 I started it.
Oh, nice.
Originally was, I called it Polack Outdoors because, I'm Polish, and I always kind of call myself the Polack. That's like my alter ego. So, it was originally Polack Outdoors, but I ended up changing it to Michigan Great Outdoors.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually have written down, because I've seen your stuff on Facebook. So, like, it'll come through as, I'm pretty sure a lot of your stuff on Facebook will come through as Polack Outdoors. And I was going to ask you what it was that made you want to change that, or did you just kind of like evolve into Michigan Great Outdoors, or was there something specific that made you change it?
Well, so when I really started Polack Outdoors, I never intended to do gear reviews. It was more just like, I'm going to film my hunts. My uncles, I have 5 uncles, and 2 of them are big hunters. And they used to do something called the opening day report, and it was with Yash and Stash. And they just they goofed off in front of the camera. And it's just really cool. And I wanted to kind of like pay homage to them and like do something. So I started the Polack Outdoors. And, I just filmed some hunts, and it was funny as that first year I got a bunch of kills on camera, and it was, I shot my biggest buck on camera. It was a really good filming season. And then when I got done, I had some people starting to reach out, and they're like, man, you should kind of like review some of this gear you're doing, like give us some tips and pointers. And I started doing it, and I always try to just do it like a non-BS way, just kind of like just presenting it like, like we're talking now, just like as buddies, like this is what I think. This is, I think it's junk. I think it's great. And, after, I don't know how many videos I've done now, it's kind of taken off. I mean, I still call myself a shitty YouTuber, a small little YouTuber, because I always want to remain humble because, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small channel still. But, it's actually, it impacts people, and, it has over 1 million views, and it's just kind of cool.
Oh man, that's fantastic. A lot of people don't talk about, their views, or they'll shy away from quantifying, a quote unquote level of success, but that's really fantastic. And what year was that when this was all sort of starting?
2018.
Okay.
Is when I started it.
That's awesome. Well, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Oh, I was just going to say, I found you in 2021, I'm pretty sure, because what had happened was my wife bought me a saddle for my birthday in 2020, and then in 2021 I injured myself, and I found myself laid up for extended periods of time for like the next year and a half. And while I was laying face down on a massage table healing, I was watching all of these. What I was trying to do was plan my future as a hunter, and I wanted to, and I knew there were so many things available as far as mobile hunting is concerned, and gears, gadgets, and all these amazing products that people provide. And lo and behold, the absolute best review of all of them I could come across was yours, and because it was explicitly unbiased. And kudos to you, because it is really hard to not put a spin one way or another on things. And I always felt like you really gave the truth on whatever it was you were reviewing, good, bad, or indifferent. I always felt as though you were being wholeheartedly honest about it, and that helped me out tremendously. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, and you know, I've gotten feedback from others like that, and that's always kind of driven me and fueled me to do more. I mean, if you look at my channel, you know, probably like 98% of all the products on there I pay for with my own money. You know, sometimes I get discounts here and there, but you know, it's not like lavish discounts. It's like, you know, 5%, 10%, stuff like that. But, you know, I don't even talk about that. I always just review it as I always would. And it's burned some bridges with some companies. There's some people I've pissed off because I've given, you know, honest opinions. But, you know, that's just how, you know, my family is. We've always just been true and honest. And, you know, that's, you know, not to get too political, but, you know, this country, I think we need a little bit more of that. We need a little bit more truth and honesty, and kind of, you know, it's okay if a product's, you know, not up to snuff. You know, they can improve it. You know, there's feedback that can be given. And if you really paid attention to some of the products that I've reviewed over the years, you know, these companies they've taken that and they've made those products better and ultimately fixed a lot of their issues. So I think that's kind of cool. But, you know, it does kind of maybe create a little bit of hostility in the mobile hunting game.
Well, that's interesting you say that as well, because I had a list probably of 10 things that I've had written down ever since I first mentioned to you that I'd like to do this, and you know, that's part of it as well. And I think you make a bunch of really great points in what you just said, because you know, I see it from, like, my son plays hockey, and I see it with kids his age, and a lack of honesty amongst parents to their children and coaches to the children. And I know we don't live in the same world that I grew up in, but it is critical. It is imperative that as parents, you are honest with your kids about everything. Because like you said, how is anybody able to learn and grow as a human, or in this instance, as a company, if people aren't being honest? And you do a great job of that.
I appreciate it. And you see it everywhere in life. I mean, if you watch the news, you got to watch it with a grain of salt, because whoever kind of controls the narrative controls what information is being shared. And it's no different in the mobile hunting game. You know, I watch a lot of these Facebook channels, and, you know, I'm not as engaged as I used to be on the Facebook groups, but, you know, you see some of this stuff going on, and it's just like, you know, where are people's hearts really at, you know?
Yeah.
So
I just showed, I don't know, I don't have my video on. We aren't doing video right now, but I don't know if you just saw what I showed you. I have a shirt on right now that says Public Enemy, and it is spelled out with the various news channels on cable television. And it's just funny that you went there, because you're right, man. It's absolutely right. So you mentioned
it's weird times that we live in.
Sure. Dude, it's wild. We were just upstairs, and I don't remember how it came up, but we were talking about, you know, where are we going in the future? And my wife said, where do you think we're going in the future? And I said, well, we're either going to be, or no, my son said, what is everyone going to have? What is it going to be like in 100 years? And I was like, I don't know, man. I go, I'm 50-50 on everything's going to be digital, and we're going to have these microchips in our brain. And then there's another part of me that says we're going to go into another dark ages, because people can't handle the trajectory that we're currently going in. Human beings physically can't handle it. And we're either going to implode and go back to living in caves because we're going to ruin everything, or we're going to succumb to the Neuralink and all be mindless robots.
I feel like there's going to be a reset at some point. I don't know. I hope it's not nuclear war or something horrible, but I mean, I think there's definitely going to be a reset.
There almost has to be, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'm seeing videos now, those people, they're wearing those Apple, have you seen those where the Apple glasses?
Yes.
And people are walking around town with them, wearing them, and like, it's like they're already plugged in, man. It's crazy. It's, you know, these people need to get out in the woods and get back to Mother Nature.
Yeah, that is, I try to go for a hike every day, and there is nothing more rewarding than the fresh air after being stuck in my office all day long every day, to then going outside and getting some fresh air. It just clears the mind, man. And I think you're right. Everybody could benefit from that.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about your channel, and because again, this is how I learned of JAYCE. This is how I learned of Michigan Great Outdoors. Number one, fantastic name. Did you have to pay extra? Like, did you have to buy that from somebody, or was it available?
No, so I mean, I'll kind of go back to the whole Polack Outdoors thing. So I started making the reviews, and they started gaining some traction, and I started getting like a core group of fans. I guess you call them followers or whatever. And people were like demanding more. They're like, hey, you should do a video on this. Like, you should do a video. Like, how do you hunt? Like, so I started like pumping out more videos. And I worked at a company, and there was an Army Ranger that was working there, and he had a business. And we used to talk about his business. We talk about what I was doing, because I mean, technically it is a little mini business that I have.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it does make money off of YouTube. It's minuscule, but it makes a little bit. And he was like, hey man, like, Polack Outdoors is cool. Like it's cool that you want to call it that, but like, you can't market like a racial slur. And I'm like, well, I'm Polish. And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can't market that. So it kind of got me thinking like, man, he's kind of right. I should do something. And so I always loved the Michigan Out of Doors TV show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've probably saw that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was thinking, I'm like, man, I'd like to call it something like that. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just call it Michigan Outdoors. Well, somebody already took that. So then I was just like, I love being out in the great outdoors. So I just call it Michigan Great Outdoors. And that's just kind of how it came about. And, I like the name, but, part of me kind of wishes I would have kept Polack Outdoors, just because that's kind of my roots. But I don't know, maybe if I would have done that, it wouldn't have, grown to what it is today. I'm not sure, but
yeah, you're right. I mean, I understand your feelings there. I really do. And I just would say Michigan Great Outdoors. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm thinking to myself, he probably had to buy that, because when you think about what people had, like existing domain names and so on and so forth, there's a whole business where people just buy them and sit on them waiting for somebody to want something like that, and then they make a little bit of coin off of already sitting on that domain name. And the fact that was available, it was shocking to me. So good for you.
I mean, it's on YouTube. You can do it. I could make a channel called Chris B on YouTube if I wanted. You could have. I mean,
I see what you're saying.
On YouTube, they don't care, but yeah, what you're saying, like a website and all that. Yeah. I've looked into getting MichiganGreatOutdoors.com, and it's actually taken.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I thought about going and doing a website and like going the whole merch route and like trying to do shirts and stuff and, hats and, it's cool, but I've sold probably, I don't know, 40, 50 hats over the last few years, which is, I mean, that's pretty good, but it's just, you have to spend the money to have the website and then get a Shopify or something. And it didn't really make sense. If I was at the level of, 50,000 subs or maybe bigger, maybe I might move towards doing something like that.
Have you always considered yourself a mobile hunter?
So, if I don't know if you want to go back to like where I started.
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love to.
So I've kind of grown up in hunting. I grew up in Canton, Michigan, which is, just outside of Metro Detroit. And right across the street from my house was Holiday Nature Preserve. It was right on the Canton-Westland border. Mm-hmm. And it's like 400 acres of nature preserve. And it was full of deer. And there's big bucks in there. And I grew up, when I was a little kid, watching these deer. I grew up seeing them. I put corn out. I fed them. I took pictures of them. Eventually, when I started getting a little bit older, like, 9, 10, 11, I would call at them, and I'd rattle. Like at nighttime, I'd go out there and I'd rattle, because the bucks would never show themselves. And at night, I found out if you rattled in the rut, they would come in, and then I had like a spotlight and I'd shine them and just to see them. But yeah, so that was like kind of how I grew up. And then I actually started hunting in 1998. So it's like 24, 25 years ago. And when I first started, I hunted with my Uncle Rob. We were, I don't have a father. He was never present, but I would hunt with my Uncle Rob. And we, for like the first 4 or 5 years, we were mobile hunters. We just took our bows. We just worked our way around the woods. We would find a good spot to sit. I was really good at climbing trees. I mean, I was 12 years old. I carried a little fanny pack. I had a little mini saw in it, a grunt call, and a pull-up rope. And I would find a tree, and I would just climb a tree.
Dude, that is awesome.
Terrible. You're sitting on branches for hours. But I think that kind of made me tough doing stuff like that. It made 100%. Me resilient, and it made me kind of, it helped me get to where I'm at now, where you're sitting in that tree stand for 12 hours on an all day sit, and it doesn't even bother me. It doesn't even faze me now. And I think that was kind of helped me out when I was a kid doing that. Now, it wasn't very successful. Sitting on branches, I never shot a deer. Doing that, it was, you'd have a deer come in. I had several opportunities where a deer would come in and you're sitting on a branch. You can't shoot to your weak side. You
Right.
can't reposition, you get busted. And then I think it was, 2, 3, 4 years after that. So I was probably about 14, 15. I got my first tree stand. It was a loggy bayou aluminum stand. It was like a 6-pound tree stand. Believe it or not, they had stands back then that light. And I think my uncle got it for me. And, I transitioned to hauling that stand around, and then I would just climb a tree and I would just hang the stand. And that was just much, much better because you had a platform to stand on. Now the seat post was probably only 16 inches tall.
Oh.
So for a kid, it's all right. But as I got older, it got really hard to sit in it. And which I think kind of helped me, or it led me to become like I call myself a stander. And when I'm on a tree stand, like if I go on a hunt for 4 hours, I'll probably stand for 4 hours.
That's interesting.
And
you always have.
Yep.
I'll be darned. So my brother's the same way. Adam likes to stand more often than sit. And I don't know if he's just, I don't know if he just had, we don't have any stands that are comfortable to him. I'm not 100% sure. I know he uses that XOP Vanish, and I think he smushes that cushion down. It's probably time for a new one. I don't know if that's part of the problem or not, but he's a stander too. I'm probably 50-50 myself.
With the whole saddle hybrid system now, it's really nice. You can just lean. I spend quite a bit of time leaning now in my stand.
Are you primarily hybrid hunting right now these days?
Probably. I would say my season 75% in the tree stand hybrid hunting, and then I'll saddle hunt 25% of the time.
Okay.
And it's typically I like to saddle hunt in gun season.
Okay.
Or like if I go out of state, like in 2021 I went to Ohio, and I didn't really train or prepare before I went to the hills of southern Ohio. I was like, well, I'm tough, I'll be able to handle it. And it was like after the first day, I took my stand and my bag and I put it all in the front of my truck, and I got my saddle and I stripped it down as the lightest possible, system I could, and didn't take a backpack because it was just so damning on those hills, and I needed to go as light as possible.
Yeah. Hey, I want to jump back to when you were young, when you were 12, 16, and you were hunting with Uncle Rob. Was Uncle Rob somebody who shared knowledge with you, or were you kind of learning on the fly? And the reason I ask is I talked to Justin Simon recently, and Justin didn't really have an influence growing up. He kind of just learned on the fly, and he picked things out on his own. I listened to that podcast. I heard him mention that he was self-taught. Yeah.
Which is impressive.
How about you? What was it like when you were learning how to hunt?
It was tremendous. So, like I said, I didn't have a father present, but I had 5 uncles. 2 of them were hunters, and then my grandfather was a hunter.
Okay.
And my grandfather lived right next door to me in Canton, so we would watch those deer together, and we would often take walks in the nature preserve. So that's where I learned about, deer trails, scrapes, rubs, how deer are moving through. And we used to always we would track deer. We would try to find them. And there's a lot of deer over there. I mean, there was one time in February, we saw a yard of 23 deer.
Jeez.
At one time, we counted 23 deer, and I think there's probably more now.
Wow.
But my Uncle Rob, he was, I don't know why he kind of took me under his wing, I guess. And, I guess just being his sister's kid and not having a father present, he was, thought it was necessary, whatever. But he took me out, and, I shared, when I was 11, I shared one of the coolest experiences ever in the woods with anybody. He took me out. It was my second time going out, and he had a preset stand. I think it was like November 4th or 5th. And when I was a kid, I used to have we remember when you're a kid, you had your hearing was pristine. You had like binocular vision.
Yes.
And we're sitting in this tree, and it's a cold November morning, and it's crisp. It's 30 degrees, and it's like November 4th or 5th. And we were sitting there, and he had just got done rattling, and we used to rattle a lot. And I'll maybe touch on that later, my opinions on rattling. But he just got done rattling, and we were hunting like this public land area that about 150 yards away, there's a big creek. And then there's this massive hill that goes up like 1,000 feet. And on top, there's corn, and that's all private. And a lot of times in the rut, you rattle, those bucks will come out of that corn, they'll come down and they'll cross over to public. And we're sitting there, and I heard something in the creek, and this creek's about 150 yards away, and I could hear something coming. And I kind of leaned over to Rob and I said, "Hey, did you hear that?" And he's like, "I didn't hear nothing." I'm like, "Okay." So it was like 5 minutes later, where that creek is, there's a scrape there. There's a community scrape, and to this day, that scrape is there. Every year, it's there.
Moly.
And I heard this deer go to that scrape, and I could hear it scratching, paw on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like 140, 135 yards away, and I can hear it. I'm shit you not, I can hear it. I'm like, there's a buck, there's somebody scraping on that ground scrape. So I just hit the grunt call. And remember, when I'd practiced so much when I was a kid, I was pretty good at running, and just a really short little grunt. And it was like 5 minutes later, I kind of looked up to the trail to my right, and I could see legs coming through the hardwoods, kind of above us, because it was like a little bit of a hill. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's a deer." I'm like, "That's a deer." And I'm like, "It's going to walk right past us." And I just grunted one more time, and it just turned like you wouldn't believe. It just turned on a string.
Oh my God.
It comes walking by at 15 yards. And I'll never forget looking over my shoulder, because I was faced to the west. My uncle was faced to the east. He looked over and saw the deer, and then grabbed his bow, and in one perfect motion, he stood up, drawing the bow. And this is back in 97, and those bows, he had an 85-pound Jennings bow. And those bows don't have let off. The draw cycles are terrible. He stands up, draws this bow back, and then shoots this deer on the walk. And I'll never forget watching that arrow hit that deer. There was like a ripple that went through the whole body of the deer. It was like I saw the whole thing in slow-mo.
Oh, man.
Shoots this buck. It runs 40 yards. It stops and then just like stands there for 10 seconds. It doesn't move, and then just gives out like and then just falls over. And like for that to happen, and it wasn't a giant buck. It was probably, I don't know, 115 inch 8-pointer. But like for us to share that experience, and like for me to call the deer in, he would have never known. If I wouldn't have grunted, who knows if that deer would even came by us.
Yeah, he couldn't hear it, right? He couldn't hear what you could hear. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So when that happened, and then the celebration after, I think that's when he kind of, something changed, and he was just like, "Okay, well, he's not just a little kid. Like he's serious about this shit. Like I was locked in after that.
Yeah, you were invested.
We gutted that deer, and I remember we were gutting that deer, and we saw another deer, like probably a 130 buck, come to investigate the noise or something.
Oh,
I mean, we must have been in a rut fest or something, because there was deer everywhere. So we saw another buck, and it was just like, I remember just that moment so vividly. So, going forward, for the last 24 years, I've hunted with him, every year. We hunt together. We were in the woods. And when growing up, he was vital in showing me not only how to, read the woods, find deer, but how to, not survive. I mean, we're in Michigan. You're not really going to die out in the woods.
Yeah.
But like, just how to navigate. We spent a lot of time in northern Michigan, up in Gaylord, Pigeon River State Forest.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 100 and some acres up in Emmett County, which is way up in the northwest corner of the southern lower peninsula, kind of like near Indian River.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a lot of time hunting up north together. And just, I mean, he was, forever grateful of everything that he showed me. Unfortunately, I never really got to hunt with my grandfather. He kind of quit hunting when I came around and started getting into it. But so it was just me and my uncle. And, my uncle came from the olden days when they had the big deer camps, and everybody would go up north with 2-3 trailers, and they would all park on the side of the 2-track road, and they would camp for 2 weeks. And so he tried to recreate that with me, and we did tent camping a lot, which was brutal. We're tent camping in November, and Michigan's gun season up north. And then eventually, we kind of ended up going into hotels, which was fine too. It's takes some pressure off having to set up camp and stuff. But he was vital to teaching me some things. And honestly, when I think back on it, he was teaching me a lot of stuff, but I think he was also trying to figure it out himself.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of along for the ride.
Nice.
So like, we would go hunt areas, and he would just kind of like, he would just be, we would hunt like this 1,000-acre piece, and he'd be like, "All right, we're going to go across the swamp and I'll drop you off somewhere that looks good. And then I'll just go like 100 or 200 yards past. And then, I'll come get you at dark. I mean, that was usually what we did.
That's really telling. Like when you tell story, and again, this doesn't sound like, my brain tells me this wasn't that long ago and it shouldn't be that dramatically different, but the way life was back then, paper maps, nobody had a phone, you weren't using GPS, like you had a compass maybe, and you just learned the woods. You had to, you didn't have a choice. And that sensation of being one out there, and it's hard. I really wish that I could go back to that for a little bit of time, because I have a hard time right now imagining, like, remembering that feeling, because all I know now is that feeling of, well, I'll just look at my phone. I really wish it was like that. I secretly wish, maybe secretly.
Yeah, I mean, just leave the phone in the truck.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a thing. When I was coming up as a 12, 13, 14, that was one thing that we always talked about is, because we would be up north, and it's vast in some of those areas, but like if you just keep walking, you're eventually going to come to a road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's like out west or something, but
right.
He would teach me like, all right, we're going in west. Look at our compasses. We're going to go through these pines, and then we're going to go hunt. And we got to watch our compass all the time. And then we're going in west. We got to come out east. And he would make me do it. He would make me, like, we'd go walking around all freaking day. And he'd be like, all right, get us back to the truck. And, sometimes I did it like an ace, and sometimes I was way off, and he would let me fail. I mean, we were still out there hunting, so it didn't matter, so those little kind of little life lessons, it was just priceless. And, to this day, there's times I use Onyx, like if I'm going on a mobile hunt and maybe I just want to get home, like I just want to get back to the truck. I don't want to mess around. Like I'll look at my phone, but for the most part, like I don't really need Onyx to navigate in the woods.
The direction you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people have really lost that. I mean, one of these days I'd love to make like a movie of I run a lot of trail cameras, and I have probably 100 pictures of people walking by the trail cameras staring at their phone. It's so funny.
I wonder if you have me on any of those, because I'm guilty of it, man. I am so guilty of it.
There's this one swamp that I there was a couple years ago, there was a really big buck in there. So I littered this thing with cameras. I had a guy walk by he walked by 3 different cameras in the same day, looking at his phone 3 times. So it just kind of, I think it's, the generation now, Onyx is a great tool, Spartan Forge, Hunt Stand, whatever you use, but it's changed, the woodsmanship, I think, big time.
Oh, I had to force myself, man. And I had to force myself because I was going like to the Mobile Hunter Road shows, and I'm listening to these guys talk about things that I had to Google the definition of. And I'm like, this is unfortunate. I shouldn't have to be so naive to this stuff. If this is what I really want to do, put your goddamn phone down and go figure it out. And it's worked, but it was what I had to force myself to do it, and I'm thankful for it. Now, I wanted to ask you, so you're a family man. Are a lot of those lessons that you learned growing up with Uncle Rob, are those things that you share with your kids today? And is it as important to you to teach them as it was to learn those from Uncle Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. And, my sons are getting to the age where they're going to start getting involved more. Mm-hmm. And, I just chose personally that I wanted to wait a little bit. I didn't want, and this is nothing against, somebody that has a 6-year-old and is out there shooting deer. That's great. If you want to do that, but I just wanted to wait.
Yeah.
I wanted, if my son can't hold the gun himself and aim, then maybe we shouldn't be doing this yet. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the mentality I had. Carter, he's my oldest. He just started hunting last couple years. We took him out on the youth hunt, turkey hunting. Took him out deer hunting. He's had shots at deer and turkey. Hasn't gotten it done, but in a way, I kind of like what he's experienced so far, because it's trying to teach him a lesson. Like, hey, this is Michigan public land. We don't have private. We don't have, we're not in Iowa. It's a struggle, and he's learning. In my opinion, he's learning the right way, as I would want him to. That nothing against, you see some of these kids that, 6-year-old shoots a 180-inch deer. That's great. I'm not saying that that's bad or anything. I'm just saying it's not really realistic. And I want my kids to kind of more experience something more realistic.
I heard somebody say something the other day, and dang it if I can't remember where I heard it. And it really struck a chord with me because I think it is exactly what happened to my son. So I took my son out 2 years ago, maybe 3. I think it was 2. And he shot a button buck that I led him astray on and thought it was a doe. It was at last light, and that's okay. I'm not mad about that. But this person on whatever podcast I was listening to said that children at that age cannot understand taking a life.
Yep.
And the hunting aspect of being with their dad or their mom and being in the woods and seeing the animal and even the initial kill shot is exciting until it sets in what has happened. And until a kid or a child or an adolescent can really come to grips with what it means to take a life, you have to really take that into consideration when you're determining when those kids should go in the woods. And I've never thought about that, but that's exactly what happened, I think. He won't go now.
I truly believe that to my core that saying. It's the same thing with like violent video games, The kids watch them and they don't really understand what's happening. I think it desensitizes them.
Oh yeah.
So that we don't let our kids play games like that. But I feel the same way. He's 10. I mean, he's pretty smart, and I think I almost think if he shot a deer and walked up to it, he'd probably feel bad, because he's a sweet kid. But and there's nothing wrong with it. If somebody wants to have their kid shoot a bunch of deer at 5, 6, 7 years old, that's fine. It's a free country. Do whatever you want. I'm happy for you, but that's just not how we're going to do it.
Yep.
We're going to kind of do it a little bit later, and I want them to kind of learn and like appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of getting to that age where they're starting to remember things, and I think it's just better.
Sure. Oh, 100. I agree 100%. And I really pushed my son Waylon to learn to shoot a bow, and I wanted to make sure that everything he was doing, he wanted to do it. And it's the same. It's our same, direction with hockey. I'm not going to force him to play hockey. I want him to do whatever he's going to do because he wants to do it. And it came to season in 2023, and I asked him, I said, do you want to go for the youth hunt? And this kid had been practicing his bow all year, and he was good, and he was ready. And we were going to climb a tree together, and I bought him the harness, the whole thing. And I think once he realized what was going to have to happen, and I really believe it's taking the life of an animal, he chose to not hunt this year. And that's okay. I'm totally fine with it. He may come around or he might not, but I certainly wasn't going to force him.
Yeah, I think he might come around. I mean, or he'll, maybe fishing will be you guys' thing, or maybe turkey hunting or something like that. I mean, there's plenty of options.
Oh yeah. He likes to go out there, and he likes to help me with trail cameras, and he likes to help me hang stands, and he likes to go shed hunting. So he likes being out there, and it's obviously spending time with dad too. And I think that's, regardless, that's the most important part. And I think it's great you're taking the boys.
Yeah, I like that too. And unfortunately, where I hunt, it's such swamplands. I mean, I gravitate towards swamps just because that's what I know. That's what I like. And unfortunately, it's like every time in the summer we go to hang cameras or something, there's like a billion mosquitoes, and it's just absolutely miserable for them.
Yeah.
So they don't get to partake as much. I need to find some private close to home or something. That's kind of maybe one of the goals this year, is try to find an alternate hunting spot.
Have you ever tried to do any door knocking?
No, I thought about doing letters, and I heard I listened to your podcast about your giant buck you shot and how you wrote the letters and had some success there.
Yeah.
I thought about trying letters. I got a buddy that he does letters. He does like 25, 30 letters every year, and he'll get like 1 or 2 people to hit him back.
Yeah. It's tricky because I sometimes clam up. Like, I don't have a problem talking to people, but sometimes I'll clam up, and I'll be in the road right at their driveway and be like, nah, they're just going to say no anyway. And so the whole letter thing takes that right away from me. It's just like, you know what? You mail it. If they answer, great. If they don't, well, I tried. But that's just, I've every year for the last 3 years, one of my goals is find more private, and it's just so hard around here.
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, but I thought maybe if I could find at least a place for the kids to hunt,
Yep.
maybe people would be into that. But and then again, like a lot of people don't want you gun hunting on their property, and
Yeah.
they're not gonna. I mean, unless we got a crossbow, they're not really gonna be bow hunting for a little while. But
Right.
yeah, it's unfortunate. And I hunt a lot of public land in southern Michigan, and it seems like me and my uncle were actually talking about this year. Is that what's that public land going to look like in 20 years? Because Metro Detroit it's growing closer and closer, and like a lot of these towns that when I was a little kid they were like little villages, and now they're like bustling towns, and it's getting closer and closer to these hunting grounds, and it kind of makes me worry for the future a little bit.
Have you seen an increased pressure where you hunt?
Yeah, it's borderline crazy.
Was it crazy back when you were with your uncle?
No, it was not.
Interesting.
There was always some guys. So there's a couple lands that I've been hunting my whole life. One in particular is, I guess you call it our main area we hunt. I've been hunting there for 25 years. I think my uncle's been like 35 years. My grandfather actually found the place like 40 years ago.
Wow.
So we have a lot of history there. I love it. Back in the 90s, there was 160-inch bucks all over the place.
Wow.
Never shot any, but they were there, and people would see them. There was actually like a 178-inch deer taken.
Jeez.
And I know I hunt the hill that it was taken off of. I mean, I hunted it several times this past year. And so back in the day, there wasn't the technology, I think, and deer could live to be a little bit older. I think it's a combination now of, for one, I think like bow hunting's become super popular, which is good. I mean, it seems like hunting's in a decline, but bow hunting a lot of people are getting into it. The mobile hunting, they're getting excited. They're doing it. The technology with the trail cameras, the cell phones, Onyx, I think it's getting a lot of a younger crowd in the woods, which is good. We need it. But at the same time, it's making it difficult because all these great spots that I've known for 20 plus years are getting molested, not just in deer season, but they're getting molested. And, because I run a lot of trail cameras early, I usually post a lot up early, and I'm getting a lot of people walking around bedding areas in September, which is just, in my opinion, just a big no-no.
Yeah.
Especially in swamps, in public on Michigan, maybe in other states you get away with it. But, that's when those bucks are kind of, they're coming out of velvet, and they're kind of establishing their pecking orders and where they're all going to end up for the fall.
Right.
And then you get people walking through these bedding areas, scouting, I guess, whatever the hell they're doing. And the area that one of the main areas I hunt it's pretty tough right now, and it's kind of forcing me to evolve more. So scouting more, picking up a couple more properties. I have several properties that I hunt or can hunt. There's a lot of public down here. So I'm going to try to refine some setups this off season, and try to get on some deer.
Man, you make a good point, because I've never done myself a service of pre-scouting any of the public around my house. And then I always default to it late season because I'm like, well, it's right here. I might as well hunt it. And at that point, I'm, behind the 8 ball. And so I will utilize all the tools at my disposal. I will use Onyx and everything, and I will go out there, and I will always I will go to where I think no one's going to go. And there's always sign that someone's been there first. And so, like you said, these guys, they're using the tools to their advantage, and good for them. And I'm happy to hear it. In fact, I actually got a text 2 days ago. I got a random text message from an 810 number. And he's like, hey, man, just came across your camera. Just let you know I didn't mess with it. And I was like, cool. Okay. But then I thought to myself, well, you opened it, because that's where my number was. So you might not have messed with it, but you opened it. I didn't get mad, so I went and grabbed it. But, the people are finding them. The people are back where you don't think anybody's going to go. And like you said, you just got to evolve. You got to get creative and keep having fun, because it can be a real bear to try and stay positive on public land out here in Michigan. And I know everybody says that. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking, but
it's the deer are still there.
Yeah,
I mean, if I look back on this season was a really weird season for me. I ended up in April, I lost my job that I had for 6 years. The company went under, which, we knew it was going to happen. So, I'd been looking for a new job, and I just couldn't find anything I wanted. So I ended up at this really terrible company, this logistics company. It was horrible. And so I was working my ass off, and come deer season, I was trying to get a new job to get out of there, but I couldn't find anything, and they wouldn't let me take a single day of PTO off.
Holy shit.
So I was a weekend warrior come deer season. And if you hunt every weekend, that's like 34 or 36 hunts. Maybe you get in the whole season.
Mhm.
I don't think I hunted more than 20 sits this year. I think I was maybe 15, 16, 17. And, I firmly believe that you got to put time in the woods. It's all about, you got to be precise, and you got to have your timings right. But, you can't argue that time in the stand is helps.
Absolutely.
Regardless of how great your scouting is or how much your prep is, if you take a guy and you put him in a mobile hunting and bouncing around for 30 days versus a guy that, hunts only 2, how many more opportunities is that other guy going to have?
Sure.
So I'm a firm believer. You got to be in the woods. You got to be able to adjust. And I just couldn't adjust this year. And, I ran a lot of cameras because I knew that I was going to need something to help me. And it's crazy is the cameras showed me the deer were there, also showed me there was a shitload of hunters there. And it was just like I just kept missing them every time.
Dang it.
And I would go in and I would, scout with my stand on my back. And I know this area like the back of my hand. I'm like, all right, I got a deer on camera here. I know where he's coming from. I'd go jump in that swamp. I'd set up right, make sure the wind's good, don't make any noise, and strike out. So you strike out on Saturday, and then you got Sunday, and then it's back to work. And you don't have I didn't have any of those extra days where usually in the past, you take that week or 2 off. I would always save at least 2 weeks for deer season. And most of my killing's been done on those weekdays, and I didn't have them this year.
Man, that's a bummer. I actually was curious about that because you and I spoke sort of briefly this year, and I sort of knew your challenges as it relates to that, and that's a bummer to hear that it was so tough. Sorry to hear that.
It was an off season.
Yeah.
My uncle didn't hunt either this past year just because he had a lot of things going on. So it was just a strange year. Getting a new job and all that, but all that's squared away now. I'm working for a great company, and I got PTO lined up, and I'm getting ready to start this scouting onslaught here for the next couple months. So I'm excited.
That's great. Did you end up shooting any deer this year?
I ended up wounding a bunch of deer.
Oh, well, I mean, you didn't have to volunteer that.
That's
we all do it, man.
No, I didn't have a shot at a mature buck this year. And that's the first time in, I think, the last 4 or 5 years that I haven't had a mature buck encounter. I had some good, 100-inch 8-pointers, but I'm at the point in my life where that just doesn't really rile me up anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm shooting for Pope or better or something. I was specifically hunting one deer. I mean, it was a 10-pointer. He's probably pushing 140
this year. And you were this year?
Yeah, this year I was. I had 5 or 6 run-ins with him last year. I have just a pile of trail cam photos of this deer, and that was the only deer I wanted. I didn't want anything else. And I hunted the days that I could hunt. I hunted my ass off trying to catch him, and never linked up with him. We got some pictures of him in mid-October, and then he vanished. So I don't know if he's dead or hunkered down somewhere. I have a feeling he probably got killed, but that was kind of my goal, was to just, I got limited time. So all I'm going to do is be super aggressive and go after him.
I like that.
And, there was a couple of other bucks there was another pretty nice 8-pointer. If he would have walked by, I would have, he was probably like a 120 or something. I would have definitely tried to shoot him, but it was like a couple days before gun season. I had a doe that I shot, and I hit her low, and I didn't find her.
Yeah.
And then I wounded a doe in gun season as well. So that was kind of rough. You never want to wound an animal. And,
no.
I spent all day looking for him, and, burned up another day and never found that deer. So
do you have a community out there of guys that you maybe you see frequently that you kind of share intel with, or is it kind of hush hush?
So I have my Uncle Rob, obviously. I share everything with him. And then we have his best friend. He's an older fellow. His name's Jamie. He hunts out there as well. We share information. He's trustworthy. He was hunting hard this year. He had probably his worst season as well. He hunted way more than I did. He's an older guy. He hunts presets. He has a preset stand, but it's in a great spot. And unfortunately, everybody else knows that it's a great spot, and he was getting pounded by human pressure. So we were sharing intel, but as far as like, friends, I really don't hunt with friends unless I go like on a trip or something. I did a little hunt in October with some friends. We went just like mid Michigan. We did a weekend trip. When that was fun, we shared intel on that.
Nice.
But usually when I'm hunting, I'm just kind of just me out there.
Yeah. But you don't hear rumblings of, oh, Carl shot the big one out here. It's not that type of a community over there.
I mean, I play the parking lot game.
Yeah.
When you talk to guys, you kind of can get information out of them. You give them a little bit of information, and then because I have so much history in the area and I run so many cameras, I kind of can tell what's BS and what's real. And so somebody did shoot a nice deer out there, but it wasn't a deer that I don't think it was him. It was a smaller. It was a 10 or 11, but it was much smaller. Had a lot of junk on it, on its bases and stuff. I knew he shot it. It was opening day of gun season because I heard him shoot, and I tried to wait because I was trying to wait to see him come back in the parking lot at the end of the night, and he just didn't. And I was like, I can't wait anymore. But we do have another person that hunts there that we talked to, and she's actually a woman, and she saw the deer. She said it wasn't nothing. It wasn't the big one that I was after, but.
Well, there's always a chance.
Definitely information that gets passed around.
Okay, good.
But you got to take all that with a grain of salt too. I mean, I've been misled by people purposely. I've had friends that I thought were my friends. Kind of I met them in the woods and stuff like that, and I've been purposely misled. So, unfortunately, it's just the way public land is. You just got to be careful. I don't really share information, and like if you go on my page, like if you go on Instagram, I'll share some trail camera photos, but I don't share really any of the deer I'm after.
Man,
and
it's weird. I feel that sometimes too. Like I love to share because I get excited about it. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you understand that. Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, you want to put content up. You're trying to grow whatever you have. Your page, and I'm trying to grow mine. And I have beautiful photos of deer on scrapes doing cool stuff. And it's like, until they're dead, I'm not putting them out there.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing myself a disservice, and then I'll speak very, generally about things, and I think, well, now I sound like an idiot because I'm not being specific, and I'm obviously withholding information. And then I say, what the fuck am I even doing this for if I'm not going to be, outright, just out with it, just say it, man. And then I think, well, no, because then I'm not going to be enjoying what I'm doing, and so there's this vicious cycle inside my own head. And it's 100% social media. It's all social media's fault because it causes people, because you see people act like animals on there, and then you think, well, that could happen to me, and then so why am I doing this? Should I just be quiet and hunt? There's that guy that does hunt quietly or whatever. I've been a big Dan Infalt fan. Ever since I found him. And he's always said, loose lips sink ships. Yeah.
And I believe it to my core. It's happened to me. I've been burned several times not too long ago. And so I've just accepted it. And this is what I think. Before this social media crap and the YouTube channel and all this stuff, why I like doing it, it's a fun hobby. I was a deer hunter first, and I'm always going to be a deer hunter. If I could kill 140-inch deer every year, I would delete my Instagram and YouTube channel tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I love. That's what I love to do. I love to hunt. I love that feeling when you walk up on that buck and you kill them, especially with mobile hunting. It's more it's just more rewarding, especially like a deer you have history with, or you finally get your hands on them and maybe you've been watching them for 2-3 years. Like I would totally take that and give up everything.
Oh man, 100%. I always say I want, like, every couple years I can get a new cell phone at work, and I don't have that option to go back to like a Razr flip phone because I would love to go back. I don't want all the other crap on my phone. I don't want email on my phone. I hate it. I just hate it so much. And you're right. I did not film my buck kill this year. And occasionally I'll have that longing to relive it on film, but I can relive it in my brain, and I'll just keep doing that. It's just as good.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife, she makes fun of me because, like Friday or Saturday night, I'll be having some beers, just sitting there, and she'll walk in, and I'll be like, intently looking at my phone watching a video, and she'll be like, you're watching one of your hunts from 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, why? And I was like, because I love it. I love having that footage. And, my kids watch the videos and they love it too. And it is a lot of work to film videos, but it is really rewarding when you do pull it off, even if it's a doe kill or a turkey or whatever. It's just really cool to have that.
Absolutely.
That footage.
I tell myself I'm going to really try harder, and I usually get exhausted by the end of October. And I I think you said something that even this year where you're like, just going mobile, just going cell phone only for a particular period of time. And that's just it. I choose to not carry my camcorder in because it's a little heavier. And I'm like, I'm just going to do cell phone. And then I always, as the season wears on, so does my commitment to filming. Just wears away.
Oh, I know. So I got lucky with the company that I was working at. We got work phones, and somehow I ended up with an iPhone 13 Pro.
Nice.
And the one day I was just looking at it, and I have my normal phone's a Samsung, my personal phone, and so now I got two phones, and I'm like, why am I not filming with this thing? Like, let's give it a try. And I did it, and I was just like, wow, this actually works, and it cuts the weight like in half.
Absolutely.
And you talk to people and you're like, well, you shouldn't count ounces and shit. And it's like, you know what? In the course of a season, it makes a big difference if you can cut out 2, 3, 4 pounds out of your pack. It does make a big difference. So, when I'm going super deep, or if I'm going through swamps, which a lot of my hunts, I got to cross 1 or 2 swamps, and maybe I got to cross a 200-300 yard swamp to get back to this other section of woods. That shit kicks your ass. So if you can cut out some weight, it's going to be beneficial to you, especially if you are able to, you're hunting a week straight. I mean, it'll tear you up.
Well, why don't you do me a favor, and anybody listening a favor? What are you running as your setup? all like you can go as intimate with your details as you want, or just kind of keep it generic if you want. But like, what are you running as a setup?
So I started with the Lone Wolf Assault 2 in 2019. I had the full Lone Wolf sticks, and that setup was great. I shot a bunch of deer out of it. I liked it. The stand was super comfortable, but it just, it was a little bit heavy, and the sticks were kind of awkward because they were so long. So then I bought B sticks, and I just love those B sticks. They're amazing. And I ran those for a while, but I was actually bending them because I had the full length ones, the 24-inch long ones, and I was bending them. The tubes were bending. So I got Hunting Beast replaced those tubes, and then I took the new set out there and hunted again, and I ended up bending 2 more of those, and I just got pissed. So I traded those for some guy. I got them replaced, and I traded them away, and I got the Lone Wolf Custom Gear mini sticks. And I actually sent a message to Andre DeQuisto, and he actually responded to me, and I asked him, I said, hey, will these hold me up? Because I'm a heavier guy. I'm 265 with my hunting crap on. I'm probably pushing 275. But I asked him, I said, will this stuff hold up? And he was like, you're good, man. He's like, this stuff's rated. It's built to last. So I got the sticks. And then I bought the 0.5 stand, and I knew that 0.5 stand, that custom gear stand, was going to be kind of small, but I'll never forget the first hunt I took it out. I never even practiced. Everybody says you got to practice in the yard. You got to do all this stuff. I don't know why. For some reason, I just didn't that year. And I just took it out for a hunt, and I climbed 20 foot up in this tree, and I got on that stand, and I was like, holy shit, this thing is tiny.
What have I done?
Yeah. I was like, this was a mistake. But then I started thinking of when I packed up, how easy it was and how light, and it was just, when you're holding that stand's only like 5.5 pounds, 6 pounds maybe, and it's just so easy to hang, and it's quiet, and it makes you more efficient because you don't have to hold up this heavy stand. And I said, I'm gonna stick with it, and now you can't get me out of that stand. People don't believe, as big as I am, that I hunt out of that 0.5, but I live in that stand. For 3 seasons now, that's what I've hunted out of the most. And I wanted something that was going to hold up, that was going to be solid. And, I take my stands apart every year, and I inspect them and really thoroughly look through them. And that stand is there's not a bend or break or crack or anything on it. So
that's impressive.
My main setup now, because I kind of been playing around, but at 0.5, I use the sidekick bow holder, the extended sidekick. I have the tall post on my 0.5. with the 0.75 seat. So when I do sit, that original 0.5 seat was just way too small.
Yeah.
So I got the 7.5 seat, and then just this last year, I was running those custom gear compacts and with the J hooks, and I just kept it seemed like every time I went hunting, it was raining. And every time at night I was packing up my kit and I was putting these J hooks on in the rain. It was, cold, rainy, and I was like, man, this shit sucks. I'm like, I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this fiddling. And I went to I talked to some guys that were running the double step sticks, and Ben Simon, he's actually one of my good friends. He's a custom gear guy. And he was like, dude, try these doubles, man. Just, try them. And I knew that they were good on the tree if you use the cam strap. And, a lot of people don't really like the bolts that are for standoffs. But he was like, dude, just give them a try. Take them out this weekend and hunt. Just take three. Take three of them with you. And I tell you what, I won't go back. I mean, just the ease of when I get to the tree, how easy they come off. I don't have to mess with J hooks anymore. When I'm packing up, I've probably cut half my time in my packing up. And then I run, I'll take three of the 14-inch double step custom gear sticks. And then I take 2 3-step aiders, backwoods mobile gear aiders.
Okay.
And if I push it, with 3 sticks, I can get almost about 18 foot.
Oh, absolutely. So I was very curious to hear what you were doing for aiders and how high you were getting, but the two multi-step aiders is a good idea. I never thought about that.
Yeah. And them aiders, I've tried so many different aiders. I've tried Amsteel, I've tried cable aiders. And I think that 3-step aider from Backwoods Mobile Gear with the double step and it hangs off each side, I think that's the most stable aider. That Arsenal aider is pretty stable too, but that I think that's probably like multi-step aider. That's the best aider out there in my opinion.
It is nice.
I've tried a lot.
Yeah. No, it's really nice. No, that's a good setup. What are you running? And you're running a saddle on it, right? For a hybrid setup?
Yeah, so I run a TX5 minimalist. I love it. It's small, it's lightweight. A lot of time I use my leg straps if I'm going, high up in the tree. But if I'm only hunting, a couple sticks high, or if I'm in a swamp, I won't even put the leg straps on, which is probably not the best advice. But
I won't tell. I don't use them either.
And with that saddle, you can sit down. You can roll it. It's got you can roll it up, kind of just pull it up, and then it's got the little hooks that you hang, I guess, the bottom, the whole seat of the saddle. You can roll it up and it's out of the way and you can sit in your stand like normal. And then, when you get up, you can deploy the saddle if you want. Most of the time, I don't even deploy the saddle. It's kind of like just like a belt.
Yeah, like a back band almost.
Yeah, maybe a little bit lower than that. But yeah, like I said, I'm a stander. I stand most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because when I go hunting, I'm so jacked up. Like I'm so anxious I'm in kill mode. Like I'm ready. And I get this weird anxiety when I'm pulling up my bow. Like if it's on an evening hunt in the rut, like, you're setting up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Like I have an anxiety until I have that bow and a arrow knocked. Like I have this anxiety flowing through me that, I just don't want to be that guy that you're setting your stand and this freaking booner walks by.
Yeah.
Your bow's on the ground. So I try to set up as quick as possible, being quiet as possible. And then immediately pull my bow up first, knock an arrow. I put my release. I started shooting a handheld release this past year. So I'll put that on my string. I'll put my bow into my sidekick and then I'll finish setting everything else up.
Nice. Have you ever been caught bow half up, half down on the ground with a buck?
No. In 2016, I got caught shirtless.
Oh, okay.
So I had a preset on this point way deep in the swamp, and it was windy as hell, and it was like noon or something, 1 o'clock. We went to lunch, and it was funny because it was Jamie and Rob were both out there hunting, and we were texting back and forth. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm all sweaty. I got to change my layers to get ready for the evening, and I was literally shirtless. And I just happened to look over my shoulder, and there was a nice 8-pointer, and he was coming by, and I didn't get a shot at him because he was just in the thick shit. But I mean, it was kind of funny. I was like, I thought I was going to pull it off shirtless, and it would have been an epic story.
That would have been as primitive as it gets, just like the good old, the Indians used to do. Their leather cover on the bottom there, and no shirt, just taking dinner, man. That's how God intended it.
Yeah, and that's, going back to you asked about things that my uncle has taught me that I've really held on to. And one of the things that he's always told me is like, when you're in the woods, be ready to kill. Like,
Yeah.
you be ready at all times. Like, I see a lot of guys in gun season, even sometimes they're, I'll run into guys and, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, just scouting. And it's like gun season. I'm like, why are you not carrying a gun, man?
Yeah.
Like, where's your rifle? It's like anything could happen at any moment in the rut. Like, and I've had that happen where I've been in the woods bowless and shooters have walked by that. Actually, when I think about it, we were hanging stands one time and we watched, this was up in Pigeon River State Forest. Me and my uncle were going to hang some stands the day before opening day of gun season. And we watched a giant 10-pointer 10 to doe for about 45 minutes. I could have shot this deer 30 times.
God.
And so, yeah, that's, when I'm in the woods, I turn into just like, I'm here to do what I'm here to do. And that's to harvest deer.
Especially when you have limited time. There's no sense in dinking around out there when you're very limited time anyway. And of course, like you said, you're excited. This is what you've been waiting for all year. I mean, you might as well be ready.
Yeah, and I've had chances, not so much at big, mature deer, but I've had chances at a lot of deer, and I've killed some does. Like, if say I'm doing a morning hunt and I'm going to go to lunch or something, I always try to I don't necessarily always take the trail back. I'll try to take a different route to do some scouting on the way back to the truck. And I tend to slow down, read the sign as I go. And just, you never know when something's going to pop up. And I've killed those that way and a lot of times it's close to the truck, and close to the parking lot. I'll jump these does and, I've killed a couple of them that way.
That's awesome. I think I've only ever really had an opportunity on my way in one time and I whiffed it. I don't really plan on that, but I probably should be a little more ready when I'm walking in. You are, what I would say is you are entrenched in the industry. Like you get your hands on some of the most incredible gear that anybody could ever imagine. And from backpacks to stands, to platforms, to sticks, to all the good stuff, and I think the mobile hunting industry itself has come a really long way, in my opinion, in a really short amount of time. Do you think so too? Or am I just, maybe I'm not aware of how long it's been evolving?
No, I definitely would say the last probably 3 or 4 years, it's just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
It's almost it's almost like I can't even keep up. Like I can't keep up with the stuff's coming out so fast now.
Yeah.
It's like and that's partly because my job's changed, and when my last job I had more free time to be on my phone, like surfing the Facebook groups, and that's where really you get a lot of that information as somebody will, they'll start teasing something new, and then you kind of get, okay, what's this? And you start paying attention. But yeah, the last 3 or 4 years, it's been insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to continue. I think it's going to, unless we hit a recession in this country or something, I think it's really going to continue for a while. I mean, you can see, one of the things that kind of stands out is like Trophy Line this year, they unveiled those sticks with the platform, and it's made from a new material called Magnite. It's different than aluminum. It's supposed to be lighter and stronger. And, it's kind of funny. I hit up one of my buddies and I was like, dude, I told you this shit was going to happen like 3 years ago. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, one day somebody's going to figure out a new material, or maybe one day, like you look at the tree sticks, how they are in tree stands. Like, what if, somebody, an engineer, like a real engineer, structural engineer got involved? What if you went to that engineer and said, hey, show me how you'd get up this tree? Design me a way to get up this tree and make it as light as possible and 300-pound rating and stuff. What if there's other ways to get up a tree versus like sticks? Maybe there's a different way. Or I think that there's one day somebody's going to come out with something even more impressive.
Well, that's what I wanted to know from your eyes. And I think you just kind of said it. I laugh because when I hear that word, what is it? Magnite?
Yeah, I think it's called Magnite.
I think people are just making up words nowadays.
Well, supposedly that's already material that Expedition Archery has used for their bows. They were making risers out of Magnite, which I never knew until recently. And then, but I guess it's like, it's not readily available. It's like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know if you forge it or something, and maybe the materials are harder to source. I don't know exactly, but I just thought when Trophy Line came out with that, I smiled, and I like those guys, those Trophy Line guys a lot.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, like, here we go. Like they're thinking outside of the box.
It
and
is pretty cool. I will give you that and give them that. That is a pretty cool product. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think with mobile hunting stuff, that's what we need right now. We need, you look at like the tree stands, like every tree stand's covered,
Yeah.
What else can you do to a tree stand? Can you make it from Magnite, make it lighter? Maybe you shave off a pound. Is it worth it to spend $2 extra $100 versus buying an aluminum stand? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it to guys. I know it's just like everything else. Everybody wants the latest and greatest iPhone.
Sure.
You want the new Samsung phone. You want the new Chevy Silverado that came out this year. I mean, so I think it's going to continue, and I'm excited about it. But the other thing that kind of, if you really look into the history of mobile hunting gear, a lot of it's just kind of knockoffs. A lot of these guys are just, and maybe that's what the industry is now. Like everybody's going to have, if you're a mobile hunting company, you're going to have one of everything. So you're going to have your own camera arm, even though it looks like and functions the same as everybody else's. It just looks a little different.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just kind of what the industry's going towards, having brand loyalty maybe. So, if I'm a Trophy Line guy, I just want to buy everything Trophy Line, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
That's one of the things that I kind of see right now in the industry is a lot of people in these pages, they're all excited about some of these gear items that are coming out. And it's like, well, it's kind of the same as this other product that's been here for 3-4 years. It's just got a different color, and, maybe it's made somewhere else, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I and it's funny because you took that and I didn't even have to ask you. You knew exactly what I was implying, and you answered it exactly. I just sometimes wonder, is it hot? Is it burning red hot right now? Is the mobile hunting thing still so red hot? But, you can also listen to podcasts where people talk about how we're losing access to ground and hunters are quitting at an exponential rate. And will that be the catalyst that actually slows down the advancements in the technologies? Will the people who are currently super excited about mobile hunting get turned off by lack of hunting access, and then therefore either not hunt anymore or go back to the old way on their grandpa's farm? You know what I mean?
See, I think that it's going to accelerate because, they say that hunting's dying off. Less people are hunting every year. I think people are getting less access to private lands. So now everybody's flooding the public.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're going to be successful on public, you damn well better have a mobile setup.
Yeah, that's true.
And be good at it. So I think it's going to continue to trend up for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that all these companies are going to make it. I think,
yeah,
and I don't wish bad blood on anybody, but I just wonder eventually the market's going to be so saturated, and how can you have 17 different saddle companies and expect them to be profitable?
Not a chance.
I just don't think the economics, I think, is one day going to play a part where, some of these guys are going to be like, well, it was a fun hobby for a while. And, maybe some of the smaller guys are going to get run out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like the big companies will survive maybe. But I think it's going to continue to trend upwards. I think people are going to continue to push the envelope. And it's exciting. It's expensive gear, but I tell you what, when I got that 0.5, I took it to my uncle and I said, hey, I handed it to him, and he was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, this is my new tree stand. And he was like, you're nuts. He's like, there's no way you can hunt out of this. And I showed him, put it in a tree, and he got in it, and he was like, oh my God. He's like, I wish I had this when I was a kid.
That's amazing.
And it's like, that stuff is, saddles. I can take like my saddle and my platform and like 2 sticks, and it's like, it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I take a little pack and go on a short hunt or go walk 2 miles. It's like, it's just so incredible, the gear that we have, just going from like 11 millimeter ropes to 8 millimeter ropes. It's
Mm-hmm.
like mind blowing how much nicer it is, and how, it takes up less room in your saddle bags, and they're stronger. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It is really refreshing to see how many people are excited about it and are and you can just hear the enthusiasm every time they get on a show and talk about, what they're working on. There's no shortage of excitement and enthusiasm from all these companies who are innovating, just constantly innovating and coming up with new stuff. It's cool to be in that sort of realm, and get to experience that while we're still, relatively young.
Yeah, and like going to the shows. I mean, like the Mobile Hunters Roadshow, it's kind of geared towards, they're trying to show their custom gear stuff off. But then, when you go to the show, it's so much different.
Yeah.
It's actually very little about the equipment and more about the tactics and how you can use the equipment and networking with people. And, seeing you and your brother there and just meeting everybody else and, especially for me, like I make these YouTube videos, so I kind of get to know some of these people a little bit.
Yep.
And it's just really cool. Same with the Mobile Hunters Expo. I went to that in, I don't know if that's Kalamazoo, maybe.
I think so.
And, man, that was a great time too. And they had different vendors there, but a bunch of people I knew and just everybody was just having a good old time. And, it's refreshing when you go to those events like the Mobile Hunter Roadshow or the Expo, everybody's just cool and having fun. And it's not so much of the bashing that happens on Facebook, which is, a whole nother story, but yeah, it's a good time, man.
You're exactly right. I thought the same thing. That first year that Adam and I went to the Mobile Hunter Roadshow, we were sort of shy, and plus we had our kids with us, so it was we were trying to wrangle them in the whole time, but we didn't really talk to anybody or introduce ourselves. And so this year it was so different, and to see everybody there and to recognize faces and to actually talk with you guys was really cool as well. And I look forward to going to those every year. I definitely have it on my list to go to the expo this year in Kalamazoo, because you're right. We have a really tight knit community here, especially in Michigan, and everybody is awesome and they're nice. And it isn't any of that shit you see on social media. Everyone is really legitimately cool and down to earth and will answer your questions and offer you, guidance if you need it on anything. Everybody is always willing to help, and it's a really special community that we're in.
Yeah, I agree. You get like-minded people together that are passionate. It really does kind of change things. I've met, the last couple of years. I mean, I went on my first solo out-of-state hunt with a bunch of guys that I had never even freaking met in person before. I mean, actually, Ryan Regan's the saddle hunter. I met him before at the Genesis 3D show, so I knew him. But we straight up went on a trip to Southern Ohio.
That's awesome.
And we had a freaking blast. And now I talk to him and like Ben daily. So like that, forming those relationships and bonds, and it's priceless to me. And it's you're getting with those like-minded people that, from different areas of the country. And, we're already planning a trip for this year. We're looking at some other out-of-state hunts, and it's just that networking and getting to know some people and creating that friendship. It kind of opens up some doors to like, hey, let's go on a hunt. Let's go on an adventure. Let's go do something different.
Well, and, I'd like to do more. I know we see each other at certain get-togethers that other companies put together, but I think it'd be cool to get us together more often, even if it's just to break bread and maybe have a couple of drinks and some dinner somewhere periodically throughout the year. Just get everybody together and just hang out and say what's up, ask how the family's going, even if it has very little to do with hunting. I just think everybody's really cool, and it would just be a good time to hang out together, like you said. And then that you can parlay that into out-of-state hunting trips, should that be something that you're interested in, because the opportunities are there. There's no shortage of hunting opportunities across this great country. Oh yeah. I mean, we did a little public land challenge here in Michigan in early October with the Ryan Regan and then Josh Arbogast, the non-typical on Instagram. And we just went camping and did a little hunt together, and Ryan ended up shooting a nice little buck, and it was just a blast. I mean, we got rained out for like 2 days, which was terrible. So we did some good drinking under the canopy, but I mean, it was just so much fun. And we went there and everybody kind of e-scouted themselves, and then we worked together. Like, all right, everybody kind of went out, did their own thing. And like, I found some good sign, Ryan was in some good sign, and then Josh was seeing something good. And then we kind of like met in the middle and then kind of like worked it together a little bit, because it was like, there's no egos here. Who gives a shit who shoots
a 140-inch buck. Let's just try to shoot one.
Hell yeah.
Let's take our 3 minds and put them together and see if we can get on some deer in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And we did. And Ryan was the fortunate one. He got a kill.
That's awesome.
But that's the same thing. We're looking at doing an out-of-state hunt, maybe Tennessee this year, maybe Kentucky, maybe Southern Illinois or something. And it'll be the same way. It'll be 5 or 6 guys, and we're going there, sharing information, and just if somebody can get a deer down, that's a win for everybody. I mean, it's really hard to go into a place with 5 or 6 days and get on a mature animal. It's just, you see some of these guys that do it consistently, like, Andy May is one guy I think of all the time. It's like, what the hell is he doing?
His magic powers.
Wizard.
Did you say wizard?
Yeah, he's a wizard.
Yeah, he is.
He, like, if I would think about, like, I kind of consider him like not a celebrity hunter, but he's kind of like up there. Yeah. Like, he's one of the guys that's just like, what are you doing? Because he just I know he shot like 4 or 5 bucks this year, and they were huge.
Blows my mind.
Like Joe Rentmeester, he's the one that I really I miss him. He's not really on the Hunting Beast anymore, and I miss seeing him on there because he was that same kind of cat that he was hunting swamps. And Wisconsin's very similar to Michigan and how they hunt. And I was just, I was always watching his episodes and trying to learn from him because I'm like, this guy is just different,
I don't think I know him. I'm going to have to familiarize myself with him. I think I know the name, but I don't think I can visualize any of his stuff.
I'll send you some links. He's the one that shot that giant buck in, can't think of the state. It's the state next to Wisconsin, but, he shot a giant buck on the THP Public Land Challenge.
Man,
it was a mega nice deer.
I probably have seen it.
He shot a bunch of other huge deer over the years. He was on Hunting Beast with Dan Infalt for a long time, and then he's not been on there for a couple of years. So I don't know what's going on there, but he's another guy, one of those guys I kind of keep tabs on. I always try to watch these guys that are hunting public land and getting it done. And whenever I've talked to him a couple times too. I've asked him some questions, and he's been very receptive to some of my stupid questions.
Well, I do appreciate that. That's another one of those things. And that's where social media, sort of is okay. Is where people used to be so disconnected because there was no direct line of communication to people. I mean, it was phones attached to your wall, but today you could really theoretically talk to somebody in an instant that could answer those questions like that. Like you say, it's a quote unquote celebrity, an internet celebrity who's doing what you want to do. We are so connected and much closer than ever before. And it is pretty cool in that sense.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and just from like my small following on YouTube and the amount of direct messages that I get, and sometimes it's tactics, but most of the time it's gear, guys asking questions about sticks, stands, or whatever. I try to answer them all, but it's tough. I mean, I got 3 kids, I got a wife, I got a full-time job. It is tough to get back to everybody in a timely fashion, but I try to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's fun. It's fun. I chat with people all the time. I don't even know them. I've never met them, but I talk with them sometimes weekly, about how's your season going? What's new? What are the deer doing? And it's interesting to me. And I wouldn't have that or know that if I wasn't, doing this YouTube thing. I don't believe.
Right. I agree with you, man. Hey, listen, do you consider yourself a mentor in the hunting community at all?
I don't think so. I don't know. A mentor? I mean, no.
Okay.
I don't really think so. I think I'm just a guy that makes videos, non-BS videos. I speak my mind. I try to show the product for what it is. I'll give my inputs as to, do I think it's a good product? Do I think it's worth the money? Do I think, and not every product is the best product in the world. And that's one of the things that I've always tried to convey on my channel. I've always showed like top of the line, custom gear stuff. Now this hunt arsenal stuff is, I would consider top of the line, but then I've have reviews on hawk sticks and hawk tree stands and, other lesser. And I actually I have so many videos queued up that I need to do. And a lot of it is top tier stuff, and it's entry level stuff. And I want people to come to my channel and go, yeah, this guy, he hunts with custom gear equipment usually. And that's what I prefer. And it's not because, affiliation with them. It's just because that's gear that I like that has held up to me.
Yeah.
I do a lot of hunting with, trophy line gear. I do a lot of hunting with tethered gear. Usually towards the end of the season, I'll start testing that other gear and stuff. But I like the fact that people can come to my channel and they can get varying opinions on different gear.
100%.
XOP, I've done a bunch of videos on XOP stuff. I actually I created a spreadsheet one day and I actually categorized them all because I wanted to make sure that I was being fair to all the brands.
Nice.
So I went through every video and I put a check mark and how many times. And I was like, all right, I got too many trophy line videos. I need to do some of these other guys and bump them up. And because I want to even keel on my channel.
Yeah. The reality is, I know you just said you don't consider yourself a mentor, but it sounds to me, after talking with you for the last hour and a half, that you have a tremendous amount of experience, knowledge in the industry, knowledge about deer hunting as a whole, as a lifestyle, as a passion, as a pastime. And so you may not think that or call yourself a mentor, but if you found yourself, with a group of young hunters and they were just getting started and they all were really looking up to you, and let's say tomorrow this happened, what would be the single greatest piece of advice you could give a group of young people who were just getting into this industry?
It's actually something that Dan Infalt said was like, every time you go out in the woods, learn something.
I like that.
Don't just go out in the woods and, I'm going to go hang a trail cam and I'm just going to walk through the woods and texting or whatever. Like, be out there to learn something. Learn the subtle things, like learning how deer browse or seeing that subtle trail, or maybe seeing some, the grass is matted down over here and this is a little bedding. It always try to learn something when you go out in the woods. And when I started following Dan and, then through Dan Infalt, I learned about the DeQuistos and all these other people like Andy May and Joe Rentmeester and stuff. And they're all thinking the same way. They're all thinking, when I'm out in the woods, I'm trying to learn something at every moment, at every inch of that woods. I'm trying to gain something that's going to give me the edge. And that's what I would tell people. I would tell people, don't be afraid to fail, because hunters, we fail 95% of the time we're in the woods, but you got to learn something when you're out there. And it could be simple, like, hey, I learned how to hang my stand without making noise, or I learned how to be more efficient with packing up my gear, or maybe my clothing, picking the right layers and things like that. I mean, there's always stuff to learn. And if you keep learning and just kind of focusing on and getting better, if you're truly passionate about being a hunter, I think over time it'll come pretty quick. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love it.
Don't be afraid to fail. I think too many people are afraid to fail, and they put so much pressure on themselves and I think social media is the bad for that, because you see, and I've been guilty too. Like, even this past season, I was looking on Instagram and in the Facebook groups, and there was guys killing deer, and I couldn't even get in the woods. And I'm like, this is freaking torture. And I had to put my phone down. I was like, I can't look anymore. I'm usually one that I try to reach out and I'll, comment on people's stuff. Congrats, like, great buck. Even if I don't really like you that much, I'll still, because there's people that I don't really care for out there, but I still try to be supportive of them. And I just, I was so messed up because I couldn't get in the woods that I was just like, I got to put this phone down and stop watching this crap.
Yeah.
It was just, so there's a lot of pressure for people to perform, and that's where you got to kind of go back and be like, why am I really doing this? Am I trying to kill deer because I want to look cool on Instagram, or do I want to kill deer because this is what I love to do? And that those pressures do happen, especially these new guys coming up. And you just got to learn to not let that get to you, and then maybe remember why you're out there.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. You gotta figure out why you're doing it and remember that every single time. Man, I love that. That was perfect. Jace, Michigan Great Outdoors, Polack Outdoors. Where can people get in touch with you?
So Michigan Great Outdoors YouTube channel. That's where I put my videos. I'm on Instagram at Michigan_Great_Outdoors. You can DM me there, which is kind of confusing for some, but Polack Outdoors is my Facebook channel. But I have started using my personal channel on Facebook a little bit more, which is just JAYCE OSTROWSKI. So you can reach out to me there as well. But yeah, you could send me a message. You can reach out. I'm always willing to talk to people and help people out any way I can. And, I love this community. It's fun. it's fun to see my kids getting involved. My wife's trying to get involved too. So it's just a really, really fun time to be, I guess if you say in the industry.
You're in it, brother. You are in it. And
you're too, man. We didn't even talk about your buck.
Well, this isn't about me. This is about you.
You posted that video, but you never really. That was the one thing I was a little disappointed. You never really had any good glory shots of your buck,
dude. That is something that I was. So we'll touch on this and then we'll wrap it up. So I was actually going to Iowa for work, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go a little bit early and hunt. And I didn't plan on shooting a buck that I was going to then have to take to a processor immediately because I had a meeting the next morning. Like I had to be in Iowa, in Davenport at a job site at a very specific time. And I'm like, holy shit, I got my work cut out for me. So like I couldn't even do like the next day, like out in the field pictures. Like I had to take it right to the processor and have them caped out. So that is, I have a picture of me. I have them in the back of the truck.
Yeah, you should have got a parking lot photo or something from had the processor take it.
I know. It's hindsight being 2020. I just, I was so worried about getting him there and getting to my job site that I took too many shortcuts and had to get there too quick.
Yeah, man, that was a hell of a deer.
I have said before that I skipped several steps in the process of getting from a 115-inch buck to a 160-inch buck. I jumped the line. I jumped the queue line there. So we'll see what happens from now on.
It's something special when you have something like that to chase. I had a deer like that I was chasing in 21, and it was a legit Boone and Crockett, and it's a lot of fun, and that's one you just don't talk about until he's dead.
Yeah. And that well, like you said, I was posting pictures of this deer all year because I watched him grow all summer. And I'm like, this is my number one target. And the fact that it happened, it still blows my mind. Like I'm looking at his skull cap right now. Like I still can hardly believe it. But I don't want to let that taint it either. Like I don't want to look at every season from now on and go, well, that's my barometer for what I'm hunting, because I know that's unrealistic, and I just want to go have fun and shoot the best buck I can find myself in front of. And so if that's the biggest deer I ever shoot, then that's the biggest deer I ever shoot. But the whole process is what made it so special. The whole entire process. And that's what I'm chasing. I want to do that whole process every year.
Yeah, I agree. It's a different feeling when you pull it off.
Yeah.
When you have history with the deer, and that's kind of what I've been chasing. And I hope that 10-pointer's still alive. And if he is, it's going to be tough next year because I'm going to go for broke, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more time to go after him.
Me too. I hope you do too. Well, I had a great conversation with you. I loved getting to know you a little bit better. I feel like I could talk to you for hours at a time, and I would love to have you back on, and I would love to keep up with you and how your season's going and anything else you ever want to talk about, man. I consider you a friend, and I know we don't know each other that well, but like I said, I feel like I feel like I met you when I was injured, and you fed me wisdom through my little phone screen, and then we met, and you're just a super great guy, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it too. This is actually the first podcast I've ever done. I always said I was never going to do a podcast, but this is the first one, and I did it because I was listening to some of the other episodes you had, and I really liked the message that you were given, and this is cool. I'm glad that you had me on, and I'm glad that we finally linked up and do it. I'm kind of sad that deer season's over, because it's like we could have hit up some of that extended archery.
I'd be happy to, like, if you ever want to do some scouting out this way for that very thing, like the extended archery season next year or whatever, let me know, and we can go out some weekend and we can scout together out here, and that way we have some stuff in mind for the extended season, because I know I need to do it.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, it seems like it's going to be happening every year, and that whole thing's been kicking my ass. So I need to get some time in scouting some of them swamps where them deer are hiding.
Me too indeed. I always have great intentions, and then I never see it through and come January, and I need to stop doing that shit. I need to make it happen. Well, you're always welcome to come over. We can work out at Beefcakes in my barn, and then we can do some scouting.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Keep in touch. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, see ya.
Thanks for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we just going audio, or are we doing video?
I typically turn video off just because it will like take away from the connection quality. So You can leave it on. I just typically leave mine off, but that's totally up to you.
Oh, I'll totally turn it off because I'm on fucking Teams all day at work. So
Now you can take your
I'm
shirt
sick
off.
of staring
Take
at
your shirt
people
off
on
if
the
you want
screen.
to. Nice, man. Well, like I said, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Absolutely.
And just so you know, we are recording. I just record everything as soon as we start. Just you never know when there's going to be a juicy nugget right off the bat. I don't want to lose it.
No, absolutely.
So I don't want you to like yell out anything hyper racist or you know what I'm saying that I have to edit out.
No, I try to avoid the racist stuff.
Just kidding.
I am here with my kids and family, so you know there might be a kid that runs in here or something at any moment.
Oh, no problem, man. You could hear my dogs bark. You could hear my kids fighting upstairs. Who knows what we're going to hear?
Absolutely.
That's what makes it exciting.
I told my wife I was going to get some beers before, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to chill out.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Man, when I first started podcasting with my brother, like in 2014, we were just doing it to goof around. It was just a goofy podcast, and I would drink like a bunch of bourbon and eat like a half a thing of Oreo cookies every Wednesday, and I'm like, dude, I gotta stop doing this. I can't be drinking whiskey and eating Oreos.
Yeah, it takes a toll for sure.
Yeah, it did. Cool, man. Well, is there anything that you're concerned about? Is there anything you'd like to avoid? Is there anything you have questions on before we like get into it?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, I guess, I'll just follow your lead as far as the questions go or whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, like I said, or maybe I didn't say, I really would like to get to know you, even though, I know you on a surface level from what the internet shares, but I want people to get to know you and, of course, your channel and you as a hunter and kind of where you see things going in the future. And that'll kind of be it.
Okay.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I'm going to just do a quick intro and then we'll get going.
Sounds good.